No music for you. Welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. How is everybody doing tonight? Really quick, I just want to give a shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for watching, but you missed the best part. We got all these people here having a grand old time for a live party, and you missed it. You're still going to have a good time, but make sure every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you are right here. And sometimes whenever I feel like it. So hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, change the notifications to all so you will never, ever, ever miss another party. Real quick, again, just want to give a shout out, as always, to the sponsor of our stream, longtime friend, MySickShirt.com. They've got everything you could want. Whatever it is, they've got something for you, including, of course, the only place to get your official The Indian Jesus merch. Only at MySickShirt.com. All right. Who we got so far? We got Jimmy Dean. What is good? Not quite, but we got JR. What's going on? We got Lil Toes. What is going on? Mr. Pliskin in the building. I am so excited to chat with you guys. So, this is actually something that was dropped in the Discord server. I tell you guys all the time about the Discord server. We're in there having a grand old time. And Mike W. Shared this video. And I probably never would have come across it. But it's a great video. So obviously I watched enough to make sure we're definitely gonna enjoy it. And then other than that, we will be reacting together. But it's basically about I stopped listening to NPR. So I see here Lil Toes asks, what's NPR? NPR is stands for National Public Radio, and was basically the standard for liberal news. It was the you may have seen like the Family Guy joke one. Welcome back to the jazz hour of breaking down why jazz is the best type of music, talking like that, all that kind of stuff. But they used to always have high level intellectual things going on, and they would share a lot about that stuff. But I personally was never a fan of NPR. I really wasn't into politics that much when NPR was big. And by the time I got into politics, NPR, along with the rest of all of the establishment media, had gone down the drain. But it makes a lot of sense that a lot of people who were witness to this slow descent didn't necessarily see it as it was happening, and we're slowly like frogs boiling in a pot, listening to this propaganda and rhetoric and all this stuff, and not even realizing that they were being brainwashed. So very excited to see what it is that people have to say about why they stopped listening to NPR and what they're doing instead. I did hear about H3 getting banned. I mean, I don't think it's a good thing. I'm not in favor of banning people in general. I can't say that I'm losing any sleep over it. You know, the Jordan Peterson warned him, and all the rest of us reminded him of that warning when he last got in trouble. But apparently, that wasn't enough. And then, yes, of course, we have Elon buying Twitter. I think that's a great thing. I think it's a great thing. But I do also think we've got to slow our roll. We don't know what's going to happen yet. Everybody thinks it's like, oh, it's going to go back to the wild, wild west of the internet. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be quite like that. But definitely rather Elon in there than Parag. Jimmy Dean says, you don't always have to come across it. Sometimes it's enough to come alongside it. I like that. I like that very much. The NPR poop train episode was a sleeper hit. Oh, a sleeper hit. Yeah, bring Trump back to Twitter. Well, Trump said he isn't coming back. But I feel like he is. I feel like he has to. You can't not be on Twitter if you're going to be that relevant in society. But we are not here to talk about Twitter. We will definitely, as that unfolds, I'm sure we will be covering it. But right now, not too much to cover. Elon made the purchase, and we'll see what happens with it. So let's dive into this and see what do we got here. What do we got? As always, you guys know the sound can sometimes be not there. So if you cannot hear the video, please let me know.
I'm Peter Boghossian. Welcome to our third episode of All Things Reconsidered, where we consider what in the world happened to NPR. If you missed the first or second episode, you can find links in the description. Today, Matt Thornton and I sit down again to analyze two NPR stories. Matt is owner of Straight Blast Gym and author of The Gift of Violence. The first story we look at is about dinosaur emojis. Yes, you heard that right. Dinosaur emojis on NPR. The second story is NPR's hard-hitting look at Antifa. Just kidding. It's NPR's compassionate and supportive look at Antifa. Former public media journalist Gina Gamboni joins us again for Morning's edition. And as usual, we start with comments from former NPR listeners about why they stopped listening and supporting NPR.
So this is apparently this is episode 3. So yeah, there is a whole series that there's enough people not only to have a show about how bad NPR is, but a segment where you're actually talking to NPR listeners. So let's get into that.
Time for another segment of I Stopped Listening to NPR When. Today we're going to hear from 3 new individuals, Scott, Malcolm, and someone who's anonymous. Let's take a listen to Scott, see what he has to say.
Hello. Yes, NPR.
He sounds like he listens to NPR. Guys, welcome. If you're just joining us, we are checking out Peter Boghossian's All Things Reconsidered. If you could hit the like button on your way in, that would be amazing. And welcome.
As you probably all can tell, I'm old enough to have been...
Okay, I don't know what that is. What is a driveway moment? I'm assuming it's when you're sitting in your driveway and you have some kind of epiphany or something. Oh, it's gonna be cold. Okay, it's a whole thing. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care.
Notice it was starting to become something.
Oh, the audio cut out? What? What? All right, take 2. StreamYard, come on, man. Come on, man. All right. Yeah, he does look like he's got diabetes. Why? Do you sound like this guy? You don't sound like this guy. All right, let's see. You're gonna on sound. Yes or no?
Wasn't it? started out maybe as a compassionate move, but slowly metastasized into something else that just wasn't enjoyable or informative anymore. And my broader point is that I don't want to pick on NPR solely. I think across the American media landscape, on the right, we have one form of poison that's just no longer worth listening to. And on the left, including NPR, we have a different form.
And if I wasn't clear about that, that NPR definitely was, or definitely is, a left-wing source, and they were never shy about that. But I think they got their name from being an actual source, a legitimate, reliable source of news, even if there was a slant, even if there was a bias in terms of who they would talk to and what they would talk about. It was it was news. It was news.
And it seems a little divide and conquer, and America is being divided where it used to maybe not be
Divided?
so much. My recommendation to us all is, if you know a well is poisoned, not only do you not drink from it, but you try to encourage others to not drink from it. And our American media is poisoned in different flavors across the landscape, left and right, and even, unfortunately, center. And I think we all should just stop consuming those sources, but instead, well, at least thank God for Substack. Thank you.
Thank God for Substack.
Thank God for him being
So
done.
the larger
Jesus Christ,
problem
he was
here
boring as
is with
hell.
legacy institutions, legacy media. That's why I think this new crop of independent journalists like Barry Weiss, I have a Substack, etc., where there's also a danger to that people used to trust our legacy institutions, they no longer do. What's particularly insidious about NPR, however, is the federal funding and the funding mechanism. So we're going to talk about that as the show goes on. But I think Scott hits on something really interesting. Another theme that we've seen is that it's something else, but it's not informative.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually misinformation, as we've spoken.
He compared it to right-wing media, and I think that's correct in one sense, in that NPR is certainly left-wing media. I think it's different in another sense. It's a little more pernicious in that if I turn on Sean Hannity on Fox News, I know I'm going to get far conservative point of view. And to Hannity's credit, he doesn't make any, he's not kidding. I mean, he doesn't pretend he's not that. He is an advocate for the right. If you want to know what conservative.
And I feel the same way about Steven Crowder. And I talk about this often, that, you're not going to enjoy watching Steven Crowder unless you already agree with the things that he's saying. But that doesn't mean that he's not presenting new information and reporting on things that are happening, given his opinion. But yeah, he's very open about the fact that he's a Christian conservative. Too far right? I don't know. Depending on who you ask, everything's too far right. According to the Young Turks, NPR is probably too far right. But yeah, that's pretty much, Sean Hannity is the legacy media version of Steven Crowder. I think that's a fair comment.
Right-wing people think you can turn on Sean Hannity. The problem with NPR is the entire channel, the entire news team is like that, and they have an air about them where they're assuming to be objective journalists,
independent, yes,
independent, right. Objective journalists. They're not supposed to be, or at least they're not honestly saying that, hey, I'm advocating for the position of the far left here.
And that's the other piece of that NPR tone. That, hello, today we're going to be talking about whether or not I don't know, whatever, is that it comes with as he was saying, an air of superiority, and that liberal elitism. That is a big thing about why people are now very willing to watch NPR go down in flames, because they were sitting up on their high horse for so long.
And that makes it more dangerous, in my opinion, because if you watch if you listen to the New York Times or you read the Washington Post.
Hey, we got Divining Rod in the building. So we're putting in the work as usual. Well done. Thank you, sir. I have to say, brother, your generation catches tons of grief. Some of it deserved. Okay. Those of you that are not are always exceptional people. I'm gonna agree with that. We were just talking about how millennials, we are not the best generation, and that we're hoping for more from Gen Z. But thank you, sir. I am glad you are here. Welcome to the party. Jimmy says that no, that's exactly what it means. You should never get your news from TYT or Crowder. They're both two sides of the same coin. I disagree. I think that as biased as Crowder is, he is honest about his bias. That is all I need to know. Okay, if this is your opinion, and I know what you think of your opinion, then I can put it into my matrix of what people think and how these ideas should be categorized and all that stuff. The Young Turks don't represent themselves or their ideas. Honestly, they are not two sides of the same coin. There are people on there are people on the right who definitely would fall into that category, but I would disagree that it is that Crowder's one of them. The only thing you can be sure about either is that they will be biased as F. Sure. Okay. Fair enough. And we got Mike W, who who brought us this stream, this show. He said, "Isn't NPR subsidized by the government?" I do believe that is the case. But I don't know. So I'm not going to say yes, but I'm going to say I do believe that is the case. That's how you don't get clipped up. But welcome, buddy. Welcome. I'm glad you're here to watch this with us. Thank you so much for dropping this in the Discord. Remember, guys, Discord link is in the description. Go join right now, because as soon as this show is over, we are going over to Discord for the panel. Thank you, Mike, and welcome. Oh, not this again. All right.
You want to have objective journalism, and if that objective journalism is actually propaganda for the right or the left that's masked as being objective journalism, that's more dangerous than somebody who's a pundit who openly declares their political points of view.
Right. Spot on. All right, let's take a listen to Malcolm.
You asked, when did I stop listening to NPR? Well, I can't say that I've stopped completely.
So again, look at, we've got two older white liberal gentlemen. Is that starting to give you a picture of who is NPR or who are the NPR listeners? Jimmy Dean says it's wrong because they both still pretend to be disseminators of the news. Being biased and disseminating the news are not mutually exclusive. You can be both, and in fact, you can't do one without the other. You can't be completely unbiased. So everybody has a certain level of bias. Everybody has a certain level of acknowledging their bias. I would argue that the level of bias let's say the level of bias is evil. There's a Freudian slip. Let's say the level of bias is even. The level of admitted bias for Crowder is at least twice as much as the amount of admitted bias on the Young Turks, even though they are both equally as biased. No, see, that's not true. That's just not. I mean, tell me why you don't watch Crowder without telling me you don't watch Crowder. Come on, struggle streaming.
I have stopped contributing to them in the way that I used to. I finally got tired of listening to every single story at our local affiliate, as well as for NPR, being about race, period. I recognize that race is an important issue, as are all sorts of other issues, but it's not the only important issue facing America today. I'm hoping that at some point they'll get back to general news coverage rather than covering everything about race with the occasional foray into LGBTQ plus type of coverage.
So this is something we hear over and over again. And I'd be willing to bet that if NPR did its own independent poll of its listeners and found out why people who have stopped listening, this would rank right at the top.
Yeah, and so they don't, so we have to do it for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that is Malcolm, an eminently reasonable human being. And here's an anonymous.
Boom. Thank you, Mike. Great point. A referee can be biased for a team, but still fairly judge the game. And to make the analogy a little bit closer, obviously, if this is in, when it like pro sports, like if you like a team, then and you're a referee, like it is what it is. But if we're to, let's say, you're reffing a game and you make a call, and then one of the other refs says, that one was close. You're like, I know I'm biased, But I'm pretty sure that call was on point. And the other person's there, like, it was that close that I'm telling you, your bias is too much for you to be able to tell. Like, all right, I guess that's the case. That would be Crowder. The Young Turks would be, no, I'm not biased. You're biased. Jimmy Dean said, I used to watch Crowder, but I caught him being disingenuous about facts several times. I don't trust what he has to say anymore. I mean, fair enough.
Here's someone who wishes to remain anonymous. Let's see, with a mask and sunglasses and all. Let's see.
Hello. I can't show my face, unfortunately, because I need to.
My brain's going in so many different directions. First of all, I have a strong feeling that absolutely nothing would happen to this guy if he wasn't wearing, the disguise. But the fact that he feels like it would is very, very telling. Almost as if he's been listening to NPR.
Protect my identity. Commenting on your question about why I stopped watching or reading NPR. Previously, NPR used to have very insightful stories that covered issues which weren't covered by the mainstream news, or covered those issues in a way that was unique and insightful. Currently, and for a while, they have consistently covered news in a way which is extremely biased, extremely aligned with a woke, leftist, Democrat, progressive agenda, which is extremely biased and very unhelpful to many people. For example, today, they have a story that says the end of Roe v. Wade raises fear of more prosecutions for pregnancy loss. In the story, they talk about a woman who was imprisoned for losing her baby. They don't mention anything. If you do very basic research, you can quickly find out that this woman was a methamphetamine addict.
I heard about
and when
this.
the baby was born, when the baby was born dead, the baby was found to have drugs in its blood. They don't mention anything about this. The story is extremely biased, extremely misleading, and just promotes a very anti-Republican, anti-conservative agenda.
Does that surprise anybody? I've heard about this story, and I've heard people reference this story about the woman getting arrested for having a miscarriage. Turns out there's a bit more to the story. Why is it that so many people can get by, and so many news outlets can get by, not reporting the news? What is it that you say you do here?
So it should not be funded by taxpayers any longer because it's so one-sided.
That's a sad story.
Yeah,
and it's also
Heartbreaking.
deeply dishonest. And I have no doubt he's telling the truth. I think it's also sad. I don't doubt that he does need to remain anonymous, but isn't it sad that you have to remain anonymous because you're talking about NPR? Like, what does that tell
because
you
you're talking about
culture?
facts and evidence.
Yeah, I mean, that's how divided we are as a culture, and I think in large part.
And again, I doubt that anything would happen to him if his employer heard him say, well, I don't think NPR is super unbiased anymore. But again, the fact that he feels he needs to hide his identity to talk about NPR is very telling as to what type of propaganda these people are listening to and how they think the world works. It's because they see other people getting banned for innocuous ideas, but they don't understand that they're on the right side of it or the correct side of it. Because there's so many things that would be, quote unquote, on the right that would be just as innocuous as talking about whether or not you like NPR. That may very well get you fired.
Part as we've seen, we can thank NPR for that.
Yeah, one more thing that struck me about this, a theme that's emerged again in these, we hear from people all the time. When you conduct what he said was very basic research, really simply looking into the story that they don't cover.
It's quite a thing to overlook. The fact that the baby was born dead because it was filled with drugs in the system, and that's why the woman was in jail, as opposed to abortion laws.
Right.
It's like those are two completely different stories. That's complete and total dishonesty on the part of NPR.
Right.
There's no way around that. I also think it's interesting too for people who might think that NPR, we keep referring to it as the left, but they're not really carrying any kind of counterculture narrative. NPR is carrying the international corporate narrative. This is the narrative of Apple. This is the narrative of every big multinational corporation out there. They love this woke ideology because it's an unfixable problem, systemic, and they'd much rather talk about that than they would class-related issues and having to pay people more or any real thing that they could make.
Right.
They can.
That's a good point. That's a good point, that they're not, there's so many other things to be talking about. And it connects to what Mike is saying about both Crowder and the Young Turks. My whole thing is stop trying to win the argument and just have a conversation. And again, I'm not saying that Steven Crowder should be your only news source. Steven Crowder is way more entertainment than news. But I will not accept that they are that he is on par with the Young Turks. That's just intellectually dishonest, in my humble opinion.
Can just make a few token changes and put a BLM sticker on and get off the hook. So, international corporations love this agenda, and NPR is pretty much their lapdog.
Yeah, they love the agenda in the U.S., but they don't have gay pride anywhere in the Muslim world, right? They love the agenda in specific places like here. Thanks to Scott, Malcolm, and our anonymous guest.
Wow. So we only got 3 votes, but we got that Steven Crowder is worse for society than Alex Jones. So if you voted for Steven Crowder, I would love to hear an explanation as to why you think Steven Crowder is worse for society than Alex Jones. That I am very excited to hear that.
If you would like to submit videos for when you stop listening to NPR, just look directly into the camera and be sincere and just tell people, why did you stop?
So I'm just going to skip forward a little bit. This lady is going to kind of warm up the actual story. They're going to dive into a couple of NPR stories and see what they find. Let's put it that way. Mr. Blisket says, I listened to NPR during the Gulf War after 9/11. Excuse me. They would focus on one small detail and ignore 90%. Very non-emotional, but biased nonetheless. That's another piece of the insidious nature of being dishonest. When again using the same examples, when you watch Steven Crowder, he's and even more so when you watch the Young Turks, Cenk's head's about to explode. And so the bias is in how confidently they are presenting a one-sided opinion. And if you're not doing that, if you're just speaking just like this, welcome back to NPR, then it makes it seem like you're not trying to do that, because that's not how people actually talk. It's just a tactic. Good point, Mr. Pliskin. Valiant said, I'd like to fund a fatwa against Steven Crowder for that long-ass sip he opens a show with. That's funny. I never said he was just as bad, to be clear. Only that you couldn't trust either. Fair enough. Crowder is more heavy right-wing and a pacifier for the right. Yeah. I don't think... It's hard to tell. Well, it's hard to tell what heavy right wing means anymore. But I think we could get there. That's why I'm with Mike. I'm very interested to hear those of you who said Crowder is worse. In the I don't know who. It doesn't tell me who, but 3 of you, or whatever, 66% of you who voted said that Steven Crowder was worse for society than Alex Jones. And so I'm just waiting to hear that explanation. Otherwise, I'm just gonna assume that you're trolling. Yeah, Alex, a whole other story. Yeah, right leaning for sure.
It didn't provide the necessary background listeners need to understand what actually occurred. Peter and Matt are going to talk about the story itself, but I'm going to give you some background about dinosaurs and transgenderism that you won't learn in the piece. Here we go. We start in Great Britain. Rosie Duffield is a British Labour Party MP. Duffield has been in disagreement with other members of the Labour Party about the rights trans women should have. Duffield says she supports the rights of trans people to live freely as they choose.
So this tweet says, from that Rosie Duffield lady, said, I also have feminist and gender critical beliefs, which means that whilst, I hate people who say that, that whilst I've always fully supported the rights of all trans people to live freely as they choose, I do not accept self-ID as a passport for male-bodied biological men. This is coming from Rosie Duffield. To enter protected spaces for biological women. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's not what you're supposed to say if you're a politician. You're supposed to say, trans is what up. Hey, we got per usual in the building. Bah, 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 bah. What is good? What is good? So, yeah, saying that you're not for self-identification being enough to use the bathroom of the other biological sex. That's tough. That's tough. When is that tweet from? That's September 2021.
But she does not support male-bodied biological men to access protected spaces for biological women.
Thank you for stopping by, Jimmy. Appreciate that. Make sure you like the like button. You lick the like button. You hump the like button. See you later, buddy.
She tweeted this on September 10th, 2021. Duffield was being criticized for her so-called radical feminist beliefs about women much earlier. In August of 2020, Duffield tweeted that only women have a cervix in response to a tweet using the phrase people with a cervix instead of women. Note, radical trans activists call people who don't believe trans women should have.
Oh, we know this one. We know this one. People who don't believe trans women are the same as women. Yeah, you missed him. You missed him. But he'll be back. He'll be back. He'll be back. And he's in the Discord, so you can hit him up whenever you like. Jimmy07. I like that. I like that. But yeah, we know what they call that.
Have full access to women's protected spaces, TERFs.
TERF.
If you think it's correct to say women.
Y'all know what a TERF is, right? Does anybody not know what a TERF is?
Instead of people with a cervix, you would also be called a TERF. TERF stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. It means you are a feminist who doesn't include trans women in the definition of women.
It doesn't even mean that. It doesn't even mean that. Because I am certainly not a feminist. But they would call me a TERF. Because the assumption is that everybody is a feminist. And that you're just trans exclusionary. And therefore you are radical. But I'm not a feminist. What is that? Where does that come from? The left can't meme. Bonrod said, I don't know what this says. I'm sorry.
Back to September of 2021. The Labour Party had a conference, and Duffield said she was not attending because of abuse and threats she received online.
Oh, is this you saying? Okay, I think so. You're saying Steven Crowder is worse than Alex Jones is based on one, entertainment value. Okay. Well, let's go. So, okay, 2, his gun LARP. 3, the sip. 4, him being nowhere near as funny as he thinks he is. 4, him desperately gripping to that closet door. What does this have to do with society? These are reasons that you don't like him, and that's fine. I don't care if you want to listen to a crazy conspiracy theorist, instead of listening to biased news. That's fine. But to say that Alex Jones is not as bad for society as Steven Crowder because he likes to wear his gun and he's not as funny and he takes a sip of coffee, and you assuming that he's gay even though he just had twins? Okay, bro.
Due to her stance on women's protected spaces. At that conference that Duffield did not attend, another member of the Labour Party, David Lammy, said people with feminist beliefs like Duffield are dinosaurs. Yes, he called them dinosaurs. Again, that was in September of 2021.
So in case we missed that part, He called. Well, actually, I kind of missed that part. Well, so let's double back. That's the important part.
Protected spaces. At that conference that Duffield did not attend, another member of the Labor Party, David Lammy, said people with feminist beliefs like Duffield are dinosaurs. Yes, he called them dinosaurs. Again, that was in September of 2021. People who support Duffield's view about protecting biological women from male-bodied biological men embraced Lammy's insult and started using dinosaur emojis and dressing up as dinosaurs at protests.
Look at so these are all the non-TERFs, the trans inclusionary, right? No. Okay, so these are the TERFs. These are the TERFs. So the Labor Party for the many, not for you. Got it. With worthy of respect in, I guess it says democracy and society. And this one's crossing out people with vaginas and writing women. The damn TERFs. The damn TERFs in their womanhood. Yeah, good for him. All I hear is blah, 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 blah. He said this. I'm offended. Well, listen better. So that's where this dinosaur thing started. Is that like, if you don't think that women's spaces, women's sports, women's anything that is for women should be erased, then they will label you a radical bigot. And so this was the response. Of course, it's coming from feminists, so they're still gonna do dumb shit like this. But that's where this is all going. Pliskin, sorry, saying focus on the 0.1%. That's the mainstream media for you. Absolutely. We know exactly what
on October 8th.
They focus on what they want to focus on. Yeah. But ironically, I'm on their side, because again, even though I'm not a feminist, I would be considered a TERF, because I don't think that just because you say that you're a woman, that you should be able to use just because you say that you're a woman doesn't mean you should be able to go into women's bathrooms, all that stuff. So how am I on the same side as these blue-haired, no-haired, dinosaur-wearing feminists? What is going on?
2021, the British medical journal The Lancet received a visit from protesters dressed as dinosaurs. The protest was about The Lancet's use of the phrase bodies with vaginas in place of saying women. The dinosaur protesters also visited the Labor Party headquarters. Comments from David Lammy of the Labor Party in September of 2021 were the source of radical feminists taking on the dinosaur as their symbol on the street and on social media.
So again, that's just people saying, no, we're not willing to give up women's womanhood. So because of that comment of them being dinosaurs, they decided to own it.
It wasn't until October 18th that the dinosaur emoji was declared the property of trans people, after Lammy's comments in September and after the dinosaur protests. You won't hear any of this background information in the story you're about to hear. Instead, the story paints a picture that TERFs took on the dinosaur emoji just randomly in order to harass people who are trans.
Because anybody who doesn't accept every aspect of the trans ideology is clearly just a bigot, and their entire existence is to make your life as bad as they possibly can. Mr. Pliskin says you're not. Seems like you think what? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm lost.
Granted, this story is ridiculous in all kinds of other ways and also just idiotic. But leaving out the key part of the story that explains why feminists started using the dinosaur emoji and dressing up as dinosaurs. This is how people become misinformed. Next time on Morning's Edition, I'll talk about the difference between public radio and NPR.
All right, so let's see what NPR had to say about our Transosaurus.
Now that Gina has told us what the story is actually about, let's take a listen to how NPR portrays it.
So this is actually how this is the actual NPR story from June from June of this year. We got here. Ask why they believe you're like them. I asked who. I don't know. I lost it. I don't know. Oh, my bad. I don't know. I don't know how to deal with that bot. So sorry. Just ignore it. Mike says I have no problem with Blair White using the women's restroom. She tries to look like a woman. Some of these trans don't even try and want to be considered women. I agree. I think it like this was never a problem. Because like as generally speaking, if you were going to be trans, then you would do your best to fit in. And even though it might not have worked out for some people, if you have a more masculine face, then it's going to be harder. But you would shave your beard. You would stop. You wouldn't work out and bulk up. And it turned into the what was it? The GameStop. It's ma'am. It's like now that being trans is the thing, now they don't want to assimilate. They want to be. They don't want to be a woman. They want to be trans. That's the cool thing. Being a woman is so passé. It's being trans. That's cool. Okay, okay. So, yeah, no, I mean, on this issue, I'm definitely on the same side of them, in this issue. And even though this is definitely them, and I definitely do think for myself when it comes to this issue, I'm on the same side as these no-hearing feminists. All right, so let's get into this story and see why people are no longer listening to NPR. And go. Took us a while, but we got there. See, I can be slow sometimes. I just need your help.
Dinosaurs are back on the big screen. Jurassic World Dominion is now in theaters. Young
Nice segue.
kids always seem to love dinosaurs, and maybe we all do as we crowd into natural history museums to see them in all their bony glory. But did you know that the dino emoji is beloved in LGBTQ plus online communities? It's true.
Is it
So
though?
It was upsetting for those individuals.
I'm glad they did that because I there's like you got to kind of stop and acknowledge that. But like, what? That's a thing now. They put it out there. It was on NPR. Trans and dinosaurs. It's like spaghetti and meatballs. Hey, don't you be transphobic.
When the emoji started appearing on the feeds of an anti-trans community. Amory Sievertson and Ben Brock Johnson from the WBUR podcast Endless Thread pick up the story.
So to understand this dinosaur emoji story, we thought we should start with a little dinosaur knowledge.
I'm a science journalist and author.
So that's what he thinks that one needs to understand the story.
Yeah.
And so remember that whatever her name, Gabby, I think, who was explaining the context of this story. It had everything to do with the UK Prime Minister, somebody in the UK government using that term or being called that term because she was a TERF. But NPR presents it, and it's like, well, let's learn a little bit about dinosaurs.
Yeah, now that they've actually
the feminists or the dinosaurs?
see what the story's about. When we first heard this, we had absolutely no idea what to even say about this story because there's no content here that's really in any way meaningful. It's just a petty revenge story from, something silly. But with that context, it actually makes sense. But we'll see if NPR even brings it up.
Yeah, and I remember we were looking at each other utterly mystified.
I've written books like Skeleton Keys and The Last Days of the Dinosaurs.
This is Riley Black.
Riley loves her some dinos. Now she digs for fossils professionally. She writes about it. She tweets about it. Online, she exists in multiple worlds.
Nerd!
And multiple dinosaur communities.
A lot of it is very professionalized, people talking about their new papers and new studies coming out in their latest field expedition. There's also a broader community of...
Again, it amazes me that they think that this is the requisite knowledge to understand the story. Or they don't even think it. They're just portraying it as such.
Dinosaur and
And I'm glad that he said that. They don't even think it. They know that this isn't relevant to the stuff that we just heard about the protests. But they think that phrasing or framing everything about it just being dinosaurs in the trans community. Who said it earlier? Somebody said something about, yeah, Mr. Pussy said, focus on 0.1%. That's mainstream media for you. They're supposed to be they're not like underground, but they're supposed to be an alternative to mainstream news, a better alternative. Apparently not. Like says, oh no, my nephew is 3 and he loves dinosaurs. Oh no, he's trans. What do you mean he? That's a she. How dare you? How dare you?
paleontology enthusiasts, people who just like to know more, or they were inspired by Jurassic Park and they want to find out the real stories behind these animals. And the number of paleo artists on social media right now is astounding. Like when people talk about,
if you look through some of this paleo art, it is astounding. But within this group of dinosaur artists and enthusiasts, or overlapping with this group, there's another subset of people.
Many people who are queer, whether they are trans or some other form of genderqueer or whatever it is, we love dinosaurs.
Along with being a
So use anything else. A lot of people who are genderqueer, whatever it is, we love alcohol. We love movies. We love going out to eat. We love dogs. What is this?
a dinosaur expert, Riley is herself transgender. And according to Riley, there is a whole community of genderqueer dinosaur enthusiasts online.
Type dinosaur.
That's because if you're genderqueer, then everything about your personality needs to become your identity, that you go and find other people that do the same thing as you. And so perfectly said, Mike. Perfectly said. This is a first world problem. I cannot have said it better. Boom. Nail on the head, Mike. Thank you.
Or into the LGBT subreddit, hundreds of results with pride dinos, rainbow dinos, dino moms, dino dads, and a lot of puns like Allosaurus,
Transceratops.
In 2018, the Twitter account for Sue, the T-Rex, one of the world's most famous dinosaurs held at the Field Museum in Chicago, that account updated Sue's bio to include the dinosaur's pronouns, they, them.
So this, without the context of what we heard earlier, this would make absolutely no sense. But
right, if they didn't contextualize this, and I almost wish that they would have structured the show like that, where they would have just put the story out there, and then it would have been up to us to try to guess what the full story is, because clearly this is not anything. It's not anything.
Now that I hear this after...
There's a trans person who likes dinosaurs. Also, there are other people who like dinosaurs who are also genderqueer.
That context again, it's actually making a lot more sense because they're setting up a false narrative. The narrative they're setting up here is that transgender people also like dinosaurs. Who knew? I had no idea that people of various genders like dinosaurs. And then the evil turfs are going to come, right? And they're going to use the dinosaur emoji because they're interested in hurting trans people. That's the way this story is being set up, and that's obviously why they're starting with trans people like dinosaurs. You guys already know the context behind why the feminists dressed up in a dinosaur uniform, right? And that's a completely different story with a completely different angle. And at this point, NPR is setting up the lie.
I'm just struck by it's not mere anthropomorphizing to give a. It's kind of like a political.
So before he even goes there, he's anthropomorphize means to take something that's not human and give it human characteristics. So like all the Disney animals that are like characters that then has turned into people wanting to be furries because they identify with those characters. They're now doing this to dinosaurs as well. So that's why the dinosaur needs its own gender identity.
Or ideological anthropomorphization when you give a gender identity of they them to a dinosaur, it's not even in the same species. You need another word in there like speciesization or something. It just participates in so many fallacies and category mistakes. It's hard to keep track of them all.
What's the connection between people who identify as genderqueer and dinosaurs?
Nothing.
I am not entirely sure why. This is an aspect of social psychology. I think that has not been plumbed.
Is it
as yet.
though?
Were you using the dinosaur emoji relatively frequently before all of this stuff happened?
I would use dinosaur emojis for emphasis, just to.
What is happening? How is this? Like, I knew NPR was like cringe. But how is this like a legit thing that people are listening to and paying attention to? And remember, one of the guys in the beginning who said that they stopped listening to NPR was that every story started to sound the same. How is this? How is this news in any way? Ryan Rod said, nuke the site from space. It's the only way to be sure. I mean, I guess. Like, what? It's so weird. It's so weird.
To share things I was excited about. I use a little dinosaur emoji, a comet emoji, a plant emoji, and a raccoon emoji to kind of tell that story of like the dinosaurs going extinct and plants and mammals coming back afterwards and just having fun like with storytelling.
But a few months ago, Riley started to see dinosaur emoji that weren't so fun.
I think my initial knee-jerk reaction was just like, well, you can't have them. Like, dinosaurs are ours.
The T-Rex and Brachio.
You can't have them. Dinosaurs are ours. Name another hobby where you just get to claim it for your sexuality. What are we just live streaming? Oh, that's only for straight people. Or that's only for Indian people. What?
Brachiosaurus were showing up in the profiles of a different online community.
They could have picked anything else and it might have made a little bit more sense to me.
So the people who were, the women who were putting the dinosaur emojis in their various posts and on Twitter and different places like that were doing it because they wanted to hurt the feelings of Riley, the transgendered dinosaur.
Evidently, yeah.
Well, that's the way the story's being set up, right? They did it to hurt transgender people.
Right.
They're using dinosaurs because the feminists knew for some reason that transgender people love dinosaurs. That's what NPR is saying right here.
That's right.
It's exactly what's being said. It's a lot more nefarious once you understand what actually happened.
I'm glad they're giving us NPR is giving us a better understanding, because without NPR, we would have no idea what's going on.
Refers to the group of co-opters as.
I get the whole thing is just so. It's not only dishonest; it's just so stupid.
It's the way this story is stupid.
Yeah.
The actual original story
Yeah,
about what
it's
happened is quite interesting and not stupid.
And that's a great point too. Is that is an interesting story that you're getting people, emboldened in this culture war, and that the memification, the dinosaur, has become now a symbol. That is a news story. Tell that story. It's better. Just like entertainment-wise.
Yeah. This is NPR's version of it is stupid because I guess they had to resort to stupid in order to make a dishonest portrayal of what actually happened. How else could you twist the story unless you come up with something stupid like
and it forwards their narrative.
Yeah.
Right.
Riley refers to the group of co-opters as TERFs, as in TERF, trans exclusionary radical feminists, who
Except they don't have to be feminists.
call themselves, quote, gender critical. In other words, anti-trans. Broadly speaking, TERFs promote the idea that trans women are really men, that unlike cisgender women, trans women have benefited from being a part of the patriarchy, and thus are
even when you're going against the left idea, it still comes back to the fault. Something is the fault of men. You're not a woman because men have been men, and you were part of men being men. Like, how about just because you've got a dick?
threat to cis women. Above all, they say that, unlike sex, gender identity is an ideology and is not grounded in science.
Well, I'm glad we can finally agree. Let's hear that one more time. Because I'm glad, finally, somebody with some kind of street cred on the left is saying what we've all been saying all along. You heard it. Let's hear it one more time. It's official, guys.
They say that, unlike sex,
gender
identity is an ideology.
Gender identity is an ideology. Meaning it's made up and only has enough, has the value that its ideas provide value. Other ideologies are made up, but their value is based on what it brings to people, how it makes their lives better. Gender identity is an ideology. That's batshit crazy. And what else did they say? What was the other piece of that? Come on, really? Just fucking play. Okay, ready, go.
It is not grounded in science.
Not grounded in science. Game over, guys. We won. The culture war is over. It's made up and it's not grounded in science.
Correct.
Factually speaking.
Yep.
You may recall the most famous or infamous person associated with TERF ideology is J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter author. Among other things, in 2020, she published a 3,700-word essay defending her belief that the term woman as a political and biological class was being eroded by people who refer to trans women.
Well, since we already know what the story was actually about, listeners and viewers can decide for themselves. But if a journal like The Lancet, which is a pretty prestigious medical journal, refers to women as bodies with vaginas, I could see where that might be offensive to some people. Maybe not. Maybe it is. That's an actual story that we could talk about.
Let's see. What was this? Let's see what they were actually looking at.
I could see.
Oh Jesus.
See where that might be offensive to.
Come on, baby.
Prestigious medical journal.
So it says from The Lancet, historically, the anatomy and physiology of bodies with vaginas have been neglected. So it's saying referring to women by just saying bodies with vaginas. I get what he's saying, that people may yeah, they're transphobic. Well, no, they're not transphobic, because you can't be transphobic if you're already one of the allies who is lifting up trans voices and spreading awareness or something. But but like a dude saying here, that makes sense. That okay, people may not like that being called that, especially women.
Refers to women as bodies with vaginas. I could see where that might be offensive to some people. Maybe not. Maybe it is. That's an actual story that we could talk about. But that's what's actually going on, and is pretending like there is no difference between transgendered women, people who are born
keyword pretending
male and then transition to become females, is pretending that there is no difference between them and biological women that are born female. If you don't pretend that, is that anti-trans? Like, do you hate trans people? Like, if I don't pretend like there's no distinction between somebody who transitioned to become a woman and somebody who is a woman, if I have to pretend like that's exactly the same thing, and I have to pretend like maybe they can.
I don't have a joke. I don't have a joke. It's like, yeah, dude, it's that. It's that. It's if you don't pretend to indulge in people's delusions, then you're a bad person. How did we get here?
Get pregnant too, if that's what I have to do. If I refuse to do that, if I just acknowledge the reality that there is a difference between somebody that has a penis and somebody that doesn't, and that difference could manifest in certain ways if you, for example, you put them together in prison, as we've seen here in the United States, where there's been women who've been raped. If I refuse to acknowledge that distinction, does that make you somebody that hates transgendered people?
No,
because that is what the implication is.
Of course not. Of course not. Of course not. And of course that is what the implication is. And they're all going to pretend, as you said, that that's not the case. They're all going to pretend that this is just, it is what it is. And you're the weird one. You're the weird one for not, the best gaslighting thing they do that I love. Well, why do you care so much? What's in other people's pants? Like, I don't know. I care about truth and reality. Full stop. I care about truth and reality. That is why I care.
Saying.
And also this attack on J.K. Rowling. First of all, it's despicable.
It's another NPR article from August 31st of this year. J.K. Rowling's new book about a character accused of transphobia raises eyebrows, subheading Rowling's transphobic comments have lost her many fans. I mean, I guess that's true. That's true in the sense that they are the ones who decide what is transphobic. And a lot of people a lot of people stop being fans. And if you're not a millennial, maybe you don't really know how big Harry Potter was to millennials. And apparently that was enough. Apparently not pretending that you don't see reality is enough to just throw away, that's like me just not watching the UFC anymore because they won't pretend that I'm 6 feet tall. Like, come on. Producer says, I don't want to pretend there are men who became women and played in women's sports. I don't like that shit. I don't know if you know. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what we're talking about. The first woman that they were talking about. The whole thing started because that is what the woman was saying. She's like, I'm for trans people and trans rights. I want your right to exist and all of that. I'm just saying, I don't think that your own self-identification of a biological male now saying, I feel like a woman. She was saying, I don't feel like that's enough for you to now use the women's bathroom. That's how this whole thing started. She got called a dinosaur for that. And then people started protesting in dinosaur costumes. And so the dinosaur thing was an actual meme, an actual political meme. Got you, bro. We catching you up. If you're just joining us, this is what we're talking about. But NPR is presenting the story as if trans people and dinosaurs were always inextricably linked. How could you not know that? And now, if you use a dino emoji, you're transphobic because it's not for you. Doesn't matter that you paid for the phone. Doesn't matter that you didn't even ask for them to put it on your phone. Doesn't matter that it's just there. Doesn't matter that dinosaurs are real things that you might use that emoji in actually talking about dinosaurs and having nothing to do with any of this gender bender stuff. Doesn't matter. The trans own it now. And you better not infringe on their territory. Mike says the women in sports need to collectively stand up and stop participating, and then they will have to stop this nonsense. I agree. I don't. When the Leah Thomas story was big, I was I'm very sympathetic to the women who have to deal with that in any sport. But Tim Pool actually was really opened my eyes a little bit when he was like, you know what? I'm not going to put my energy and fight for you if you're not going to stand up and fight for yourself. Maybe you're okay with this. Maybe you're okay with biologically male athletes. If you're okay with that, then who am I to say that shouldn't be? So you need to stand up. You need to stand up for yourself, and then I can support you. But if you're not going to stand up for yourself, then I don't have anything to say.
Second of all, it's feeding into this frenzy of hatred against J.K. Rowling for something she never said. It's just dishonest. Again, another example of dishonesty.
I put the Nightbot in timeout.
If somebody refers to my wife, if she goes to a doctor and somebody refers to her as a body with a vagina, I think she's going to be pretty pissed off about that. And I think she would have a good reason to be pissed off about that. And I could see where feminists would have a good reason to be pissed off about that. And maybe you don't agree, or maybe you do agree, but let's see a story about that. Why don't we have a story about it? Instead, we have to have a stupid story like this, which doesn't even make any sense without context. As far as NPR is portraying it, feminists decided to use dinosaurs to hurt the feelings of transgender people.
Right.
Everybody, I want to know. If you're a TERF, we need to know about it. So all the TERFs, I need you to put a dino emoji in the chat right now so we can identify. Stand up and be proud of your bigotry. If you are a TERF, put a dinosaur emoji in the chat right meow.
That's the depth of their story.
I guess I'm just having trouble. I'm trying to take this seriously, but I just can't take it seriously. It's just too stupid. But yet, it's
a bigger problem than just a waste of time. It's an abuse of
It's a
power.
bigger problem because it's a waste of time, it's abuse, and it's dishonest.
Right.
It's deeply dishonest when you realize what actually happened here.
Right.
By people who refer to trans women as women. Anyway, TERFs using dinosaur emoji was a problem for Riley.
To see, our
Oh, not Riley. We can't offend Riley because Riley happens to like dinosaurs, but they're trans. So now they're inextricably linked. Hey, we got a TERF in the building. How dare you? How dare you?
social enemies, for lack of a better term.
Poor Riley is a victim.
100%.
Taking, these symbols and trying to use it as their dog whistle, it really just made zero sense to me.
No matter who you are.
So again, we have the context of the story. It was the feminists who were insulted by being called dinosaurs by the British MP. He called them dinosaurs. And then they took to wearing a dinosaur costume and used that in protest as a way to kind of deal with that with humor. And it appears to have worked.
And just as it made no sense to, I can't remember the person's name, it makes no sense to the listeners because there's no context.
Yeah, well,
they're not explaining
why are they
exactly.
using that? Because they hate trans people.
Right.
They
Well,
hate
why
them.
else would they be?
Remember, we got this context before they started the story. I would have loved, if I knew that, I would have skipped that part, played the story, played this all the way through. And I've been like, you ready, guys? This is what this story is actually about. But here we are. Guys, real quick, if you have not hit the like button, that would be an amazing thing for me. I am really trying to grow the channel, trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I need your guys' help. I need your guys' help. So make sure you hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so. What are you doing? What are you doing?
They're using the dinosaur costume because dinosaur was...
Hey, we got indie film in the building. I'm going to run that back because he just explained it perfectly. And I know Indy is going to get a...
As a way to call them dirty.
It really just made zero sense to me.
Indy, you just came at a perfect time. This guy's recapping everything that we've been listening to so far. So welcome, buddy. Welcome. If you're just joining us, this is the perfect time. Welcome to the recap.
No matter who you are.
So again, we have the context of the story. It was the feminists who were insulted by being called dinosaurs by the British MP. He called them dinosaurs. And then they took to wearing a dinosaur costume and used that in protest as a way to kind of deal with that with humor. And it appears to have worked.
And just as it made no sense.
And so because that was a thing, then the trans people who were against the TERFs now said that the dinosaur emoji is offensive. And that only trans people can use dinosaur emojis.
I can't remember the person's name. It makes no sense to the listeners because there's no context.
Yeah, no,
they're not explaining.
Why are they using that? Because they hate trans people.
Right.
They
Well,
hate
why
them.
else would they?
Of course.
They're using the dinosaur costume because dinosaur was thrown at them by a British politician as a pejorative.
Yeah.
So they adopted it. That's the actual story here.
Mhm.
You never know that from listening to
They had no
NPR.
clue. In fact, when we first heard it, we were completely clueless.
No.
If you see
And again, this is NPR. This is not some little blog that nobody pays attention to. This was the alternative news source for people who wanted to get away from the corporate establishment media. But this stuff has infected everything. Every area of society has been affected by this shit. This is what I'm trying to tell you guys.
see something beloved taken over by someone else, that can be hard. Suddenly, genderqueer fans of dinos everywhere felt under attack as TERFs kept dropping the emoji into their feeds.
Again, Indians everywhere were so offended that people of other races were live streaming as well. Were they? Do we care? Do we care? Why am I to care about what Riley thinks about people talking or thinking about dinosaurs anyway? Because she's genderqueer? Well, that seems kind of bigoted. What about Riley's friend who happens to be cisgendered? Why don't we care about her hobbies?
You know how these things go. Just think of Pepe the Frog or the Punisher's skull or the swastika.
The swastika has to be
Gotta
in
have
there.
the swastika in there.
Got to have the
Of course,
swastika in there.
They're not.
Absolutely.
Outsider groups latch onto a symbol. That symbol is often changed irrevocably. It's not clear if TERFs knew they were co-opting something beloved to this slice of the genderqueer community. As far as
I don't know if they knew, but they definitely did some damage. DLM. Yeah, I'm with Divining Rod. DLM. Yeah, the dinosaur chicken nuggets, those are offensive to trans people. Do you think the trans people are just there to be turned into chicken for you to eat? Is that what you're saying by buying dino nuggets? How dare you?
We can tell.
Dare you?
It is clear. They adopted the dinosaur costume because they were called dinosaurs. That's why they started wearing the dinosaur costume. This person who is saying this either did absolutely no research, and then
Doubt it.
how they put together the story, I have no idea, or they're lying. Those are your two options here with NPR.
Yeah, and also many trans people are gender critical, so it's not necessarily true, like Buck Angel. But
Right.
again, you'd never.
If you're not familiar with Buck Angel, somebody brought up Blair White before. Blair White being the trans woman who's a political commentator. Buck Angel being the trans man who's a porn star. I don't think I've never seen some Buck Angel, never seen any of Buck Angel's work, but definitely looks like a dude. Any film says, wait a minute, is this whole dinosaur thing because T-Rexes are obviously gay with their little arm? Yeah, dude. I thought that part was implied. I thought that was implied. Of course.
Know any of this from listening to it?
No.
Dinosaur emoji began showing up in anti-trans Twitter bios around October of last year.
We're going to skip a section.
And so again, if you're just joining us, the main part about what you're missing is that none of the things about the protests and being called a dinosaur and why that's the meme, none of that was in the NPR story. We had somebody explain the actual story before we went into the NPR story so that we would have the context to see how bad of a story this actually is. But most people didn't have that context. Most people just went in, heard this, and I guess people are randomly, or let's take a step back. I guess there's a thing that I didn't know, that trans people love dinosaurs. They're all the same. They love dinosaurs. You know a trans loves a dinosaur. You see a trans on the street, just throw a dinosaur at them. They love that stuff. And then all of the TERFs, all of the people who just have nothing to do but sit around and hate trans people, started using their beloved dino emoji against them. Not talking to them, just using them in general. But that is enough. That is enough. But they had SpongeBob. Hey, we all got SpongeBob, all right? Especially, we all that belongs to all of us. SpongeBob belongs to all of us.
Burge, B-U-R-G-E. He's the founder of Chief Emoji Officer. It's amazing that there's such a thing at Emojipedia. The bottom line is we're just editing this out for clarity. It actually makes the story better once it's edited out. It becomes
Has
cleaner.
nothing to do with their false narrative or the original story.
Yeah. All right, let's continue.
Back in October, almost immediately, the community bombarded TERFs with takedowns and messages of trans pride.
One tweet seemed to bring this fight out of its bubble. It came.
Yeah, we're going to fight those people who are using emojis to hurt our feelings with trans pride. That'll get them.
From a pro-trans cis woman named Courtney Milan. She's a romance writer.
What a hero.
But she also dabbles in creating emoji. And in a blow to the TERF community, she tweeted a simple message. Quote, these emoji dinosaurs are both trans. I know this because I wrote the proposal to the Unicode Technical Committee asking for them.
Oh shit, the dinosaurs are trans! She got a mic drop! Bars! I made the emoji of a thing that actually existed in the world. But I've decided, after the fact, that they're actually trans dinosaurs. Hey, we got another TERF in the building. Welcome back. That's so crazy. That's so crazy that you think you are entitled to make this statement. Let's listen to it again. Listen to how entitled you have to be to make this kind of statement about an emoji that exists on all of our phones.
To the TERF community, she tweeted a simple message. Quote, these emoji dinosaurs are both trans. I know this because I wrote the proposal to the Unicode Technical Committee asking for them.
The Unicode Consortium doesn't simply make emoji. People propose emoji. It is a very official process.
They are technical documents and they are trying to make the case for an emoji, but there's often little over-emphatic language often used about why it's essential this emoji be added and what the meaning is.
Courtney Milan proposed the first set of dinosaurs.
That too is dishonest. And when she originally proposed this, we looked back and looked at this, there was no mention of the dinosaurs being transgender.
What? You mean when she was making an emoji for a dinosaur, she didn't include their gender identity? No. What? That's got to be the first thing. Do they have scales? Do they have feathers? What do they eat? What's their gender? It's dinosaurs, guys. Mike says, I better not drink any water because trans drink water also. Yep. Hey, that might turn you into a gay.
This is something that was done after the fact to help push the narrative.
You know, Douglas Murray is right. We've just lost bigger things to worry about. So we elevate these idiotic issues and problematize them. We make problems of things that are
thousands of people being raped and murdered in Europe right now. In the first large land war we've had in Europe in a long time. We've got the highest jump in inflation the country's seen in 30 or 40 years. The largest spike in homicide the United States has ever seen, 30% in this last year. And we're talking about dinosaur emojis. Your tax dollars for NPR are going to...
Boom. Who, I think Mike, was it you who asked if they are subsidized? Yes, they are subsidized by the government. So it's not just bullshit. It's bullshit paid by you. Bullshit paid by you.
Talk about a make-believe story, which was hobbled together by them to push a false narrative and ignore what the actual story was about. I think even the actual story, I don't find to be particularly important, but it's a real issue.
It's something you could...
It's women being upset about being called bodies with vaginas and then being called a dinosaur because they don't like being called bodies with vaginas, so they wear a dinosaur outfit at a protest. That's what the actual story is about. It's not about feminists hating trans people and adopting the dinosaur because they thought trans people love the dinosaur. That's just 100% bullshit made-up story by NPR.
So if you looked at a wall and didn't listen to this, you'd be better off because you wouldn't have false information.
100%.
It's like a revenge story.
You would know more about this story having not heard this story from NPR.
Correct.
Dinosaur emoji back in 2016. A T-Rex, a Brachiosaurus, and a Triceratops. Her proposal is 8 pages long, with charts showing how often people search for dinosaur emoji online. It includes potential meanings for the emoji.
Courtney was arguing that because she created these dinosaurs, she determined their gender, and she determined that
she didn't create dinosaurs. Just because you, if you make an emoji of Galileo was a real person. You can't just decide that because you made the emoji that Galileo is now gay. That is not how that works. Maybe trans is why the dinos were extinct. Oh, it's them damn puberty blockers. Divining Rod got it. We figured it out. What asteroid? There was no asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. They just all chopped off their genitals and gave puberty blockers to their children and went extinct. Beautiful. We figured it out. I hit up the Smithsonian. We figured it out. Good job, Divining Rod.
Okay. I don't even know if
Okay, I'm glad he's at least having as much trouble articulating as I am. Because, he's a pro. I'm just some dude. But it really is that bad.
How do you tell the gender of a dinosaur emoji? Do you have to look at it sideways? Or
how do you... The whole concept of pushing
that they were transgender. Does Courtney's original proposal say the dinos are in fact trans?
No, I didn't see anything in the proposal.
No. So, a hint of honesty by NPR. They just threw all that in afterwards, and now they're going to mention it briefly at the end.
And that's how they get away. That's how they get away with being news. Is that technically, they did say they had one sentence, about 5 words, that did say, well, technically, there was nothing in the beginning. But I mean, now Courtney has decided unilaterally, retroactively. Jimmy Dean, everybody. He'll be here all night.
Proposal that really makes that case.
But that doesn't mean that...
How beholden...
Well, I missed that.
Proposal.
No. So, a hint of honesty by NPR. They just threw all that in afterwards, and now they're going to mention it briefly at the end.
Terrible.
In the proposal that really makes that case.
But that doesn't mean that...
How beholden to an ideology do you have to be that you push a gender on a long extinct
species, something that's not even in your own species.
Bam,
Along,
bam, 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 bam,
just think of
bam.
the mindset that someone would have to be in to even think in this way.
That is what literally keeps me up at night. It literally keeps me up at night. That there's real live adults who have jobs, who vote, who are in charge of things, who think this way. We saw 3 of them at the beginning. They're real. We're not talking about ghosts. We're talking about really dumb people. Good one to find around.
Weak are your arguments if that's what you're left with.
Right.
The original creator of the dinosaur emoji says that the dinosaur emoji is transgender, and that's your evidence for pushing forward whatever appeasal you're trying to push forward.
And that's the whole thing. That's the whole story. That's what he. You heard him recap the actual story of what is going on with the NPR story and how it relates to the actual news. But the NPR story, he just summed it up. He just summed it up. Listen. Indian Film says, prediction, these idiots that don't have children are going to start trans their pets. I would not be surprised.
And that's your evidence for pushing forward whatever appeasal you're. Dinosaur emoji is transgender, and that's your evidence for pushing forward whatever appeasal you're trying to push forward.
That's the whole story. That's the whole NPR story. The designer of the emoji said the thing, so now we all decide the thing is the thing.
But that doesn't mean the person proposing it can't declare they are. Riley, for her part,
that's
wants us
not
to
a
remember
sentence.
that whatever we may think about the gender or sex of dinosaur emoji on Twitter, we should remember that the millions and millions of years of evolution in biological nature on planet Earth tells a story that's a little more nuanced.
So we
Does
don't
it
know
though?
what determines the biological sex of non-avian dinosaurs, as in like Triceratops and T-Rex, the ones that we love that went extinct 66 and
They're real. That's fucking cope. That's cope if I ever seen it. They're really going back in paleontology and trying to be like, all right, can we justify this? Is there anything that we can use to justify this stupid idea that we offended some people who are, just acknowledging reality or not willing to pretend that reality is out the window? What can we find? That's how deep this goes.
years ago. Right, because we don't have the genetics.
66 million years.
So the dino emoji is a stand-in for a general category of dinosaur, not a specific dino.
That's what an emoji is supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be a generalized stand-in for a category of things.
Yeah, and I would argue, no matter what you think about the dinosaur emojis, I would argue you're far better off not thinking about the dino emoji.
If you're thinking too much about dinosaur emojis, you might want to reevaluate your life.
Yeah, if you're thinking at all about dinosaur emojis, there's a deeper problem going on.
So we don't know whether it was genetically determined or today, for example, some of their closest living relatives, like alligators and crocodiles, have temperature-dependent sex determination. So the temperature of the nest.
If you're getting tired of this one, don't worry. We got a couple minutes left on this story, and then they've got another story that is a little bit meatier and not quite as silly.
Determines whether more males or females are going to be born. There are some birds.
I love how they, if
there
biology suits them, they use it, or at least they think that they suits their argument. They use it. If not, it's categorically disregarded.
I love that point. That went right over my head. They use biology when it suits them. Plug in anything there. They use blank whenever it suits them. Here, it's biology. When it comes to like dating and stuff, it has to do. Women will want a traditional man who does this, that, and the other, but they want to be the modern woman. Now get their take on trans frogs. Well, call back. Alex Jones was right about that one. He was right about that one. He did call him gay, but that's as close as you can really get. But yeah, it's sad how, again, the biggest piece for me is how many people are thinking this way. How many people are following sources like this? How many people are looking at the world through this lens? That's what really gets me.
That might have hormonal shifts during their life that make them present and behave differently. And the relevance there is that it tells us that what we think of as biological sex isn't binary and is much more malleable than we ever
Well, isn't that convenient?
really understood.
In other words, in Earth's larger history, non-binary is way more common than people think.
Is it though?
Wow. What an astonishing inference.
And therefore,
that is based upon
nothing. Bullshit.
At best, it would be the naturalistic fallacy. Let's not even go
it's
there.
not
because
even
it's
that,
such a stupid
because
issue.
I guess it's, yeah, if you have this thing for alligators and like, I mean, the whole I mean, is that the inference that one pulls as a result of this, that non-binary is more in nature than we think? I mean, this is like literally, listen.
Yeah, dude, you don't think non-binary is all over nature? Why do you think that people have been talking about it? That's all anybody's been talking about for the last 1,000 years. Oh, it hasn't been. Oh, it's been 7 years. Oh, my bad.
Listening to this, you would be stupider as a result, and it's presented as fact.
Yeah.
Unlike so many other failed attempts to save a symbol, the push against anti-trans use of the dinosaur emoji, it seems to have worked.
Hey, they won. Yay. A little happy note at the end. They won this crazy.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me? You are telling me that the trans community somehow changed society by and large? That can't be. They're an oppressed minority. It's not like every single company has a rainbow flag for the entire month of June. It's not like every law is now being injected with gender bender bullshit. Because that would be really bad. So at least they get this one little win with the dinosaur emoji.
Battle over dinosaur emojis.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to say. This was truly a stupid and idiotic.
You know what? Here's the thing. I don't personally think that finding yourself offended at the term bodies with vaginas means you hate trans women. I don't think wanting to acknowledge the distinction between biological females and transgendered women makes you someone who hates transgendered women. That's my personal opinion. But there are people who can make that argument a lot better than I can, I'm sure, like J.K. Rowling. And why doesn't NPR have one of them on to actually articulate their point of view and then do a story about that? Because that's really what this is about. The whole transgender versus TERF thing is about language, and it's about people being forced to pretend that there is no distinction in language and everywhere else. Otherwise, you're going to be called a hater and somebody that hates an entire group of people, or a Nazi. And you're going to have subtle little things where the swastika is going to be thrown in stories by NPR and thrown at you. Why not actually have somebody on, a feminist or J.K. Rowling or somebody else, to articulate your actual point of view to the American people, and then have NPR do a story like that? That could have been the story that you heard.
Yeah, that would have.
Or they could have just told the truth about this one.
I know, and I hate you for it.
It was interesting what we heard at first. The actual story was.
Yeah.
And instead, they have a completely false narrative, like Teen Vogue revenge story where, yay, the dinosaur emojis win the day at the end and they're for trans people. And actually anybody that heard this story and only heard the NPR version knows less about the topic than they did before they actually pushed play.
And what is the core issue here? Is it something that I've talked about before many, many times? Or is it something brand new? I'll let you guys determine. If you are familiar with the phrase semantic obfuscation, it's about taking words and fucking with how they are used so that you can win arguments, and these arguments get to higher and higher and higher levels, and now it's the floor of Congress. There's actual bills that are being turned into law about this. Indie Film's got to go. Thank you for stopping by, brother. Hope you enjoyed what you saw. And it's, yeah, the semantic obfuscation. This is a leftist tactic. Number one, top of the list. If you say a thing is a thing, now that thing is a thing. Unless the thing isn't the thing. then it's not a thing. Play that back a few times. It made sense, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's people tune in because they want to learn and they want to know. I'm going to end on this one thing. This is from the Journal of Zoology. Quote, sex is fully determined at the time of hatching and irreversible thereafter.
Well, they played a little shell game. If you listen to what they said there, there's like, alligators are non-binary. In other words, alligators can switch back and forth. And then when she actually mentioned it, Riley actually talks about, she says,
no alligator that's been hatched is non-binary.
Right. What they said was the temperature in the nest determines whether there's more females or males at birth. Not that once they become male, they can become female or vice versa. Two very different things. But again, there's just a deep level of dishonesty here.
Yeah, we'll post the Journal of Zoology in the YouTube comments. Okay, well, there's another.
I feel better.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about it, so I guess I'll just let it stay on its own. Thanks for watching. If you listen to NPR on a regular basis, you probably believe that Antifa is a heroic movement designed to fight fascism and crush it everywhere that it's found. NPR has consistently defended Antifa, and it's created an alternative reality. We're going to take a listen to one of the clips. This is from June 7th, 2020 on NPR's Weekend Edition.
So now we're moving into the other story, Antifa supporter, on how people misunderstand the movement. Maybe I misunderstood, but my understanding of Antifa is that it's a group that calls itself not a group, that calls itself anti-fascist, which is very much fascist, in the sense that they use violence to try and enact their political values. Typically identified by black bloc clothing, all black, face covered, and an unwillingness to have a conversation about the things that you are willing to fight about. That's my understanding of what Antifa is. Oh yeah, there are Marxists in there. But maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're wrong. Let's see.
Demonstrations in front of the White House have attracted a diverse group of protesters over the last 8 days.
Ideologically diverse?
Students, health workers, clergy, families. On a curb along 16th Street, there's Lacey McCauley.
I am just Washington, D.C. activist, anti-fascist, Antifa.
Antifa.
Also breaking right now, police warn of
Antifa.
A normal person, just like you and me, a normal person going through their daily routine, fighting fascism everywhere it's found. People are so hoodwinked by language. They're so, if Antifa were called something else, like, blooming flowers or something.
So wait. Are you telling me you're telling me that these people are using language in a way that it's not meant to be used as to confuse people? No.
They would never have gained this much traction.
Antifa protest today.
Radical militants that are coming out under cover of night, traveling across state lines.
And once again, they came to fight, dressed in black, wearing masks, and armed with smoke bombs, shields, and pepper spray. Take a look.
Okay, so we got a little, again, the little bit of honesty. There to fight. They certainly do go places specifically to fight.
That from Fox News.
Okay, so
that from Fox News. In woke language, that means, hey, you can completely disregard this. That's what that means.
NPR there's a built-in pathological hatred of Fox. I'm not a Fox listener myself, so I say that as a commentator on this. Fox says it. We know Fox is bad, therefore Fox must be wrong. Part of the narrative.
McCauley, who is white, is wearing a tight black shirt and a face covering, but most people are now because of the pandemic. Hers is a black and white paisley bandana.
There aren't a lot of people who are public who can.
Yeah, it's just about the pandemic. It's just, I'm just trying to be safe while I go out in this huge crowd of people.
Explain Antifa who are kind of in it.
She's 41 and says she's been an active protester since 2003.
41? Get a fucking life! You're 41 years old and you're an Antifa? 41 years old. That is depressing.
Protester.
and the invasion of Iraq. By
Protest.
2016, she had focused on Richard Spencer and counter-demonstrated at his deadly.
And we can all agree that Richard Spencer is not a good person. But from the very, that's where all of this, that's where I first heard of Antifa. When the whole punch a Nazi thing was going around. That must have been like 2017. And I was still pretty naive to the larger world of politics. I mean, I'd started getting into things, and even then I was like, punch a Nazi. I don't, that doesn't sound like a good idea, because we're clearly not talking about, the German National Socialist Party. So, and of course, once you have the justification to punch somebody because they are a Nazi, then all you got to do is call somebody a Nazi. It's like that early South Park episode where they were going hunting with Jim Bob and what's the dude? The guy, that guy. What would they say? They would go out hunting and like, oh, well, you got to say, oh, he's coming right for us. That was a joke. And they were talking about animals. They're doing this for people.
Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in August 2017.
Of course they would pick the Unite the Right rally and the Charlottesville Tiki Torch. Of course they would pick that, because Antifa has no relevance unless there's right-wing extremists, right? Right?
He's a white nationalist and a eugenicist and everything.
Is he though? I mean, yeah, he is, but...
Okay, so Richard Spencer, who's a horrible human being, is a white nationalist. If we fight Richard Spencer, therefore Antifa is good. That's the broad narrative that they're painting so far.
And that is what I was doing when some, right-wing people decided to basically...
How do you know they were right-wing? Oh, this is more semantic obfuscation. They're just saying they're against you. And also that right-wing is bad. So by people being in opposition to you, that makes them right-wing. And that also makes right-wing inherently bad. Good job.
Most Antifa are anonymous, but the group Project Veritas filmed Macaulay in 2017.
Crowder also did this. Crowder had people go undercover and work with Antifa at some event, and literally, like, I don't know if you... I don't think I speak very with much hyperbole, but I'm not making it up or exaggerating. They literally had shotguns, sawed-off shotguns, and other weapons that they were bringing to like I think it was a rally for like one of the statues or something like that. But they're just protesters.
Publicizing her name and contact information. She says she got death threats, that there was a mysterious fire at her home, and so for the past few years, to protect her family, she's not spoken publicly.
And I'm certainly not saying that it's good to enact the same type of thing that makes these people bad back onto them. Please don't firebomb people's houses. That's not a good thing. But that's what they do.
She says people misunderstand what Antifa is.
Okay, so here it is. Here's where we're getting we misunderstand. So now she's going to lay it out for us, and we're going to understand. We're going to understand.
Anti-fascism is more like a set of practices and a philosophy than it is.
Is it though? Because it seems more like a group of people who do a specific thing. Yeah, everything's on the right of and everything right of the TYT is right wing, not just not as. Remember, he went on Valuetainment. He was talking, and Jank was talking about Joe Rogan. He was like, he's been all right wing, and Patrick Bet-David and the other dude were like, wait, you mean like right of you or right of center? It's like, oh no, right wing. It's like, bro, Joe Rogan is just like not that. That's not what that means. You're using the words incorrectly to try to send a message.
Is an organization. no, actually, we don't have any kind of like big giant hierarchy. It comes from your heart. It comes from your sense of justice. That's
So I would not be able to go on Facebook right now and find any kind of group that was called a chapter of Antifa. I wouldn't be able to do that. Okay.
It's real. That's what's real.
What are the principles?
Is it though? It's in your heart. That's what Antifa is. It's in your heart. Maybe this is why they're misunderstood. Because when they talk, this is what comes out. Bullshit.
Principles and tenets of this. So what comes from your heart? Like, what are the? So tell me some things that Antifa believes without using the word fascism.
We need to stop the things that we don't like by any means necessary.
What are some of the actions that you believe are ethically justifiable?
Well, if it's against somebody who is deemed a Nazi, then anything.
Like, I would have asked her some pretty basic questions like that.
The Justice Department has a different understanding.
We have evidence that Antifa and other similar extremist groups, as well as actors of
Oh, wait. They're not a group. They're just, it's in your heart.
A variety of different political persuasions, have been involved in instigating and participating in the violent activity.
That's Attorney General.
I actually want to stop here real quick. And I was just having a conversation with a good friend of the channel, Dr. Evil Genius. And I just want to share this this little exchange that we had. And catch me tomorrow night on the Talking Shit podcast. We'll be doing the Filthy Casual MMA watch party. All right, so we were talking. He was, and basically he was telling me about experiences that he had talking with other people on the left about Elon taking over Twitter. Can you see this? So he's saying, I was blitzed by them for several hours today. All the red herrings, strawmen, and false equivalencies you could ever want with a fine drizzle of empty, baseless, and ad hominem attacks. Well written, Dr. Evil Genius. Well written. And I was like, leftist doing this? No, couldn't be. He said, apparently this is what progress is supposed to be. And so Dr. Evil Genius, a black man, as many black men do, associate with the left wing. And I don't think that he is a leftist, but he identifies himself as a leftist. And I don't think that's an accurate depiction of his political positions, but far be it for me to decide for him. So I told him, time to admit they are the dark side. It doesn't say anything about the GOP, but cultural leftists are at least as bad. And that was just to appease anyone else. At least as bad, if not way worse than anything on the fringe far right. I'd be afraid of a left-wing extremist, and I'd be afraid of a right-wing extremist. But I'm way more concerned about having an encounter with a left-wing extremist. He says we differ in that. I'm more concerned with the encountering on the fringe of the right. And again, fair. But he follows that up with, they've definitely sprayed more rifles and pistols at unarmed people in this country than their political opponents. The right-wing extremists, according to Dr. Evil Genius, the right-wing extremists have sprayed more rifles and pistols at unarmed people in this country than their political opponents. Can anyone name a right-wing extremist who has sprayed bullets like that? I'm not saying there aren't any. I'm not saying there are not people who would. I'm just saying, I remember the dude who got shot in Portland. I remember the Summer of Love. I remember the chop that turned into the Chaz. I remember the riots for George Floyd. I remember all of that. So I was a little confused. Let's proceed. Oh, come on. Okay, so I said, I agree. But I think a handful of crazy militia type groups are as terrifying as that can be. Are a lesser risk to my well-being than the erosion of society that is happening under our noses. More bullets? Sure. More dead children? Nope. That's the left and their propaganda. How many or how often do you hear about the self-deletion rate of these non-binary kids? And adults, for that matter. Okay. Gender dysphoria is a real thing. But are we really trying to say that the social contagion hasn't been in effect? That there are people who have wanted to become non-binary or transition because it was a phase they were going through? I often compare it to being goth or being emo. When I was in it, baby, I was in it. I had multiple pairs of girl jeans. And I wore them proudly. That's not the same thing as cutting off parts of your body. That's not the same thing as taking drugs that will sterilize you. Especially because they tell you that it won't. Especially because they tell you that it's reversible. So yes, I said more dead children. That's definitely on the left. He said the leading cause of death among children now are firearms. Okay. I want my Second Amendment rights, but I can't ignore that fact. Better training and safety measures, more caring about the emasculated and isolated. So, that part going on to some other things. But the leading cause of death among children are now firearms. I can't ignore that fact. So I'm saying, are you saying that you think those bullets came from right-wing extremists? Because of course that's not the case. But let's proceed. He says, I'm undecided on this. I need to see more numbers before responding, which, again, that's fair. That's how you have a conversation. Especially if you're talking about something important. Don't just talk out your ass. It's okay to be like, I don't really know. I need to get back to you. So, no disrespect there. I replied, children are dying at the hands of gang members and other criminals. The overwhelming majority of children who die are not dying at the hands of right-wing extremists. This has nothing to do with political extremism. We gotta... yeah. Where are we? I guess that was the... I thought there was something else. But that's where the mentality goes. That's where the mentality goes. Is that because children are dying by gunfire, that right-wing extremists are to blame. I'm pretty sure all of those gangs are in Democrat cities. What's the murder capital of the country? I think it's Chicago, right? Is that not Lori Lightfoot? If not, it's some other Democrat. Baltimore, Democrat for years. Philadelphia, New York City, LA, San Francisco. Go down the list. These are all places where the left wing is in control. Somehow. I don't know how they it's like, at what point is this enough? But I don't know. Divine Ride says, Sam Hyde, of course, when he's not being the ghost of Kiev. I missed the what you were referring to, but I'm sure it was funny. You always got a good one. But yeah, I mean that's what Antifa is supporting. So let's back this up a little bit and dive back in.
Department has a different understanding.
We have evidence that Antifa and other similar extremist groups, as well as actors of a variety of different political persuasions, have been involved in instigating and participating in the violent activity.
That's Attorney General William Barr on Thursday, name-checking only Antifa. According to the Anti-Defamation League, far-left Antifa has its roots in 1960s Europe, and the belief shared by some right-wing thinkers that if German civilians had been armed and violent in the 1920s and 30s, the Nazis would have never come to power.
And that's a fair position. But that doesn't mean like you need another step before you get to America in 2017, 2018. And we need to now have a meme that says punch a Nazi. There's another step. You're missing a step.
The ADL says Antifa's embrace of violence can be self-defeating, but notes that there have been no
self-defeating, you don't say.
Murders related to Antifa in the U.S.
Oh, well, that changed. That has changed. So that whatever that was must have been from before the summer of 2020, because we know that homeboy who did a whole thing with Vice had the communist fist tattooed on his neck. I don't know if you've seen that video, but just in case you haven't, it's just a guy walking down the street. Think he had a MAGA hat on? Maybe not even. And somebody says, "We got one right here." Dude takes him, just hides behind a I don't know what it was, a fixture. Guy walks by, just walking by. Bam! No murders. Well, of course, there's been people kicked in the face, and actually, yeah, there was a bunch of people who died. So this must have been before that summer.
Well, that's interesting. So this aired June 2020, and less than 8 weeks later, Michael Reinhold of Antifa,
that was his name,
murdered a man downtown Portland.
Oh, sorry. Here.
And he then went up to Lacey.
Yeah, I'll get that back.
That's interesting. So this aired June 2020, and less than 8 weeks later, Michael Reinhold of Antifa murdered a man downtown Portland. And he then went up to Lacey, Washington. There was a federal manhunt. He fired at the federal officers and was killed in a gun battle. And that's just one of many examples. But we've had thousands of police officers injured by Antifa. Since the BLM movement started and the George Floyd protests started, we've had about 4 dozen people murdered. There's been billions in property damage. So
but they're misunderstood.
There's a lot to unpack here. And what NPR is doing, the clips that we've heard previously, a lot of them are kind of stupid and misleading. This is dangerous because they're carrying water for a violent terrorist organization. And Lacey, no matter how she likes to portray herself, when she dresses up in black and justifies the fact that she's about to go out and commit property crimes or hurt people, there is no excuse for that. And it's kind of shameful that we do that on this, but let's see if they push back on it.
And again,
well said. Well said. I don't know who this dude is, but well said. It's dangerous to hold water for these terroristic groups. When you put out a message that these are just people, these are just protesters, then it doesn't matter when we get video of them doing horrible things. You, not knowing one way or the other, will justify it in your mind. Is Antifa misunderstood? You're goddamn right. People think that it's just something that doesn't matter, when it's really arguably the greatest threat to our way of life. I'd say that's a misunderstanding.
The pushback.
There won't be any.
Okay, so again, simple questions like, what kind of things are acceptable if you're an anti-fascist? Is it acceptable to...
When is it acceptable to take the law in your own hands?
Yeah.
And act as a vigilante and go out in a group of people and mob other...
I think Morty peed on this blanket.
People, as we've seen here
at some point.
Here in Portland.
Not like right now, but it smells.
Elderly people, young people, they're weak people in general. They get together in a group and then they'll attack anybody that they find who's on their own. That's who these people are.
Yup.
We have many federal officers that were hurt when all that happened, including blinded by lasers to the eye. That's who NPR is carrying water for right now. That's who these people are. People need to understand that.
Yeah, and I would really like to know, okay, so let's have an honest conversation. You feel this in your heart. So what do you feel in your heart is acceptable to do? Is it acceptable to knock down statues without going through a democratic process? Is it acceptable to burn corporate buildings to the ground like Starbucks? Is that morally acceptable to accomplish your cause? I mean, How about some basic questions instead of letting somebody run roughshod when they tell you something is in their heart? If something is in someone's heart and something else is in someone else's heart, that's not a reason. You can't adjudicate that. You need to figure out why you're doing what you're doing and if it's ethically justifiable. If the confidence you have in these moral conclusions are justified by the evidence you have for them.
But NPR is fine with, well, it's just something in your heart. That was the extent of the definition of what is a global terrorist group. But if you care about the culture war, you're a conspiracy theorist.
But there's none of that.
And most domestic terrorism in the U.S. is linked to right-wing extremists.
Southern Poverty Law Center for a long time had black nationalists listed and white nationalists listed, and the black nationalists far outnumbered the white nationalists, and they took it off because that was problematic for their ideology. And there's plenty of violence on both the left and the right. So to say it's right wing is misleading.
And the SPLC has been, I'm delighted that they lost their lawsuit with Majid Nawaz. The SPLC is largely a woke propaganda machine. They're discredited, but they...
What isn't a woke propaganda machine at this point? What isn't? You know, they're talking about Majid Nawaz. We had him on one of the panels that we were going over some panel with him, and he was the English dude who used to be a jihadist, not just a Muslim extremist, but a jihadist, and turned his life around. He's still a Muslim, but he has worked with Sam Harris on a lot of things. And he does a lot of good work in getting people to understand what this really is. But when it comes to the question, is Antifa misunderstood? I would say yes, but not in the way that NPR is presenting. I think the misunderstanding is because of people or places or things like NPR that will put out this whitewashed garbage.
Still have legitimacy among a certain segment of the population who then pulls from that database and says, look, this is what the data shows. Now, that doesn't mean there are no right-wing extremist organizations, but it's, again, this idea to paint Antifa, and again, it's just genius marketing, anti-fascist. Who isn't anti-fascist? Who wouldn't be anti-fascist?
It's really interesting how the left is really, 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 really bad at memes, but they are very good at naming things. The Green New Deal, Antifa. There's a bunch of other examples that aren't coming to mind. But the pro-choice instead of pro-distortion. All of these things get very, aside from drag your kid to pride, they're pretty good at messaging. And that's why the semantic obfuscation works so well. So why can't they make memes?
Lisa McCauley is 6 months pregnant and has a toddler in a stroller with her, and she supports the use of force.
In pretty much every, people's uprising, you're going to see, rioting and looting and everyday people destroying the symbols of power.
There it is. There it is. Somebody was talking about LARPing before. Antifa is the ultimate LARP. You think you're part of some grand revolution when really you're just fucking LARPing. You wear your uniform, you go up, you meet, you play your part, yeah. And you go home and feel like, oh, I did my part. When really all you did was yell at 30 fucking losers on the other side who decided they had nothing better to do but come out and fucking whatever. It's entitlement and narcissism. This is the revolution. We're changing the world. We're standing up to power. We have to take down the powerful. We have to unleash the oppressed. Without me, if it wasn't me, it's me. I'm content. It's gotta be me. I'm doing so much good work. This is how this happens. Because not only do people think this way, people are allowed to think this way. When I say allowed, I don't mean that you should be punished for having stupid thoughts. I mean, we should have a free marketplace of ideas, and that if you are part of something called Antifa, and I point out that everything that you do is fascistic, other people should be able to hear that message.
You know what? They're not rioting and looting in Lacey's neighborhood, I don't think.
Yeah.
When they burned down the police station in Minneapolis, the people that paid for that were the poor, working, mostly black people who live in that neighborhood in Minneapolis. And the homicides had the highest spike in homicides we've ever seen in a year since the record.
So this is 2020 total incidents in Minneapolis. I guess they're talking about murder, but this one is May. This is May here, and this is July. So this is the summer of love. This was the summer of George Floyd. Yeah. I misunderstood how bad it was.
Recorded history of the United States, most of those victims were black, and she's not going to be the one to pay for that. That's what's kind of disgusting about it. Not kind of disgusting, it is disgusting about this. She's justifying rioting and looting. Whose neighborhood are they rioting and looting in?
Right. I want to take a second to talk about, she supports the use of force, and she talks about taking down the symbols of power. This is, I don't know what her education is or what her background is, but we know where this ideology.
I got a PhD. I would bet money she has a PhD in something.
Has come from. We know the source,
or at least a master's.
We know that there are training institutions. Our universities have become these. They're teaching people that it's the system. That's the key word. It's the system. It's always the system. All right, let's keep.
Wait, on that point, though, I'll also say there's three major types of violent predators, right? There's the interpersonal violence that happens between people, and that is the most common form of violence, and that's going to be most of the assaults and homicide.
Guys, if you could get me 2 more likes, get me over that edge, I would be so happy. Just two, please. Thank you.
And rapes. Then there's violent criminal actors who make a living being criminal actors and cause violence in the process.
And you write about this in your book, The Gift of Violence.
And the third category is...
Oh, so I guess that's Matt Thornton, author of The Gift of Violence.
Moralistic violence, where people are committing violence for political reasons, terrorist organizations. She is of that category.
Correct.
Now, the majority, the minority of violence most of the time is that moralistic criminal actors. But when they do act, they commit more harm than virtually anybody else. And every single one of them thinks that they're on the right side of history. They think that they're, in their heart, they're doing what's right. But there's a reason why we don't let people run around and shoot other people and burn down neighborhoods, because they feel it in their heart.
Right.
Lacey
it's something you feel in your heart.
Hasn't figured that out yet.
Yeah, Steven Pinker writes about that.
At 41 years old, she hasn't figured that out. Does anybody think that day is coming for her? Or is she more likely set in her ways and only ever going to listen to anybody who is going to affirm the bullshit that allows her worldview to stick together?
It's not that people are bad people, it's that they're hyper-moral. Their sense of morality is over-activated. That causes them to do...
I like that, hyper-moral.
I disagree with that a little bit. If her sense of morality really was hyper-activated, she'd burn down her own neighborhood. She wouldn't go burn down some poor black person's neighborhood.
Right.
So I think she's a bit of a hypocrite, but I'm sure...
Boom! If she was hyper-moral, she would burn down her own neighborhood, not some poor black neighborhood. That girl needs to ghost to... Yeah. Exactly. You know what we're talking about. Is Antifa misunderstood?
That it makes her feel good to think that she's LARPing as a hero.
Yeah, and I bet you it's key to her sense of personal identity.
Told you.
No doubt.
Told you. That's exactly what I said. Is that this is so important to her. And she, in her mind, she's the main character of this action movie. Where if she doesn't go and get her black bullshit on and go to this one protest and hit this guy with an American flag, then the world's gonna end. This is revolution. No, that's not James Lindsay. That is, I already forgot his name. The Gift of Violence. That was his book. I forget his name already. Matt Thornton.
No.
Yeah. Matt Thornton.
I mean, we've seen arrests of people self-describing as Antifa, anti-fascists, or other sort of, under the leftist anarchist banner, that have been armed in some places. There have been accusations that they are involved, at least in some sense, in sort of the violence against property. What would you say to that?
I think that, I'm not very interested in talking about looting or the smashing of windows.
Isn't that convenient? Isn't that convenient? I don't really want to talk about the things that make me look bad and actually kind of, undermine my entire identity and existence. So next question, please.
Compared to the actual loss of human life. that Black people are experiencing every single week, every single
At the hands of you.
day in this country.
And what has been the results of what Lacey has engaged in over the last couple of years? This was 2020. What has happened in the last 2 years in the Black community? The largest single spike in violence this country's ever seen.
I was just going to ask her, like, okay, that's really interesting. Like, what would be an example of that?
Everything she's done has had the opposite effect.
It's contributed to the very thing that she is saying that she's fighting against. Literally everything.
This is why you're going to have 86% of the Black community in those high crime neighborhoods want more police presence. And you're going to have, we've had this here in Portland, where they were burning down the Albina neighborhood. They burned down.
So here are just 10 of the many minority-owned businesses destroyed in the riots from June 2020. Riots and looting undercut the economic foundation of urban and minority communities. You don't say. So you're telling me, are you telling me that burning down minority neighborhoods does not help minorities? Couldn't be. I thought that we needed the revolution. What happened to that? Jimmy says, BLM could have done so much with a single effectual leader. Makes me so sad. When we needed a modern MLK, we got silence. Oh, no, sir. We did not get silence. We got violence. When we needed a modern MLK, we got violence. They were very loud and very proud about it. I would pray to the God I don't believe in for some silence on the left. It's been anything but.
Down some Black-owned businesses, and they're all a bunch of wealthy white kids out pretending to be heroes, burning down these neighborhoods. And it's the poor, working-class people, small business owners in that neighborhood are begging for them to leave because those white kids aren't going to be the one that gets shot there.
Right.
Well, unless, Kyle Rittenhouse is there and he's just prancing around with his rifle and protecting the rioters and the neighborhoods they're rioting in. Cleaning up graffiti. He's the guy we're supposed to dislike, right? He's the guy we're supposed to hate. That's what I thought.
I think that's what we need to keep focusing on.
We've seen over the past few days that the protest.
Yeah, Jimmy said, no, I'm saying no one stepped up to lead the movement. So it got violent and fizzled out. 100%. Here we go. Let me see if I can find this real quick. BLM approval rating. I don't know exactly. There was a thingy where you could, it had it was like a line chart and you could see where, I'm not going to find this that easily. Give me a second. I mean, no. But basically, everybody was in support of Black Lives Matter right after George Floyd died. But because of the way that the protests were covered, even if people agreed with why the protests were happening, they didn't agree with the way it was going down. And then because the media establishment propped that up, that was a red pill for a lot of people. Kyle Rittenhouse was the final nail in the coffin for me. That I was like, okay, I can't be associated with liberal, left, Democrat, any of that. That is not my bag. That's not anything. And if that makes me a conservative, okay, I guess I don't consider myself conservative. But if you're gonna call me right wing because I'm not with you guys, that's fine. Crazy. Mike says you have these communities can't rebuild, it's going to be almost impossible for them to get insurance or spend way more to get it. Oh yeah, I mean most of the insurance claims are like very very insufficient. It's not like you're good. Like that's a common tactic of these protesters. They say, "Well, you've got insurance. We're protesting human life." It's like, okay, well, when you have an entire family that depends on the income of a building that you just destroyed, and they get $10,000 in insurance money, now you have an entire family that cannot eat. I don't mean to be crass, but the guy who died is already dead, right? So how does hurting other minorities and other low-income people helping? They'll go, no, just trust us. Just trust us. We know better than you. We, the white liberal, know better than you. Let us save you. Let us burn down your home because we know that the patriarchy but how people misunderstand the Antifa movement.
Protests have become a lot less violent with a lot less confrontation.
So like I said, just a few weeks later, there was a homicide here in Portland committed by an Antifa member, and that violence hasn't stopped. It still goes on in this city. It still goes on in quite a few.
And did you see the video after that of that? They're getting around and saying, we're another fascist pig.
I haven't. Now that I'm recounting, I think I did see this. That's crazy. They're celebrating that a random person who happened to be a Trump supporter was murdered. They're celebrating it. It's not like it's not like they were at a protest and they got in a scuffle and shit went down. You know, like with Kyle Rittenhouse. Dude was just walking down the street. I mean, hold on. Okay, let's.
City, it still goes on in quite a few.
And did you see the video after that of that? They're getting around and saying, we're another fascist pig.
The protests have become a lot less violent with a lot less confrontation. And that seems to be a deliberate tactic that is being developed in some places. Is that something that someone from Antifa could embrace?
Anti-fascists actually protest, quote unquote, peacefully. Like,
why would you say it like that? Why would you say it like that? All that tells me is that you're not some delusional person who thinks they're the hero of a story, starting a revolution to uplift the oppressed. That you know exactly what the fuck you're doing. You know exactly what the fuck you're doing, and you're trying to convince us to get away with it. Listen to that again. That is crazy.
Being developed in some places. Is that something that someone from Antifa could embrace?
Anti-fascists actually protest, quote unquote, peacefully. Like,
we don't even need to comment on that one.
When it's actually effective to do so. Remember, people of color have been protesting against oppression in this country for decades and centuries.
And now we're helping by making it even worse for them to bring attention, to bring awareness. We're misunderstood.
Has anyone listened? Like, I mean, only, people are listening right now, but...
Did she sleep through the civil rights movement?
Right.
Did they accomplish that by burning down neighborhoods? Has she not noticed the massive progress that's occurred over the decades? She's not been part of it. She's part of the problem. She's not part of the solution.
And I would have said, look, give me an example of that. Like, let's talk about what are some specific examples of that.
No, specific examples. That's for people with actual ideas, not for people who are out in the streets LARPing because they have nothing better to do. At 41 years old. Like, I don't know if do I want to go there? Do I want to go there? Fuck it. Let's go there. If you're 41 years old and you're out here doing this shit, We're listening. I can't see any more than you can see. But clearly, this is a moderately, was a moderately attractive woman in her 20s, got ran through, hit the wall, is insufferable, can't find a man, and so she made up this story in her mind with help from the mainstream media. They don't even talk about it on BET. I don't know what they talk about on BET, but it's not this. Yeah, she knows she's being disingenuous. I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt that she's just delusional. Well, like, sometimes technically we can, like, do this and quote unquote peacefully, but effectively it has to be, black people have been oppressed for years. Okay. Whatever you say.
If that police station had never been burned down, would we be talking about this right now in Washington, D.C.?
Macaulay says she's...
Okay, so 2 years has gone by. Fair enough. You're on NPR talking about it. And then... So all you did was spend a shit ton of taxpayer money and do absolutely nothing for anyone. Except yourself, Lacey. That's the only person you truly care about.
She's decided to speak out now because of the administration's focus on Antifa.
Donald Trump absolutely would love to see all of us in jail.
I said shit. Me too.
She belongs in jail.
She should be in jail.
He would love to see all of us political refugees in another country.
Political refugees. Political refugees. We believe that it's okay to murder people in the streets. And for whatever reason, that's untenable in a country like America. So we're refugees and we're being persecuted.
Into silence.
No, not persecuted into silence. You're free to say whatever you want. Just
like, bitch, you're talking right now. You are the one talking. What do you mean?
Don't assault people. Don't loot. Don't destroy property. Nobody's persecuting you for a political opinion.
Hey, if Lacey wants to destroy property, I say go for it, Lacey. Just use your property. Right. Don't go after some other poor person's property. Hey, burn your own stuff down. Right. Have at it.
Nobody's quelching anybody's speech.
And if you can start with a group like Antifa that is actually like not very well organized or anything like that. Well, you can label everyone Antifa.
Actually, no.
That is precisely what they want. That is precisely what they want. To confuse you as to what is a group or not a group. Is it an ideology or is it a terroristic group? Anybody can be Antifa. If you're against fascism, then you're Antifa. And so I don't like fascism. So that must mean that I'm part of this group. This is what happens in the mind of the average NPR listener. And so then, when people like me come out and say, fuck Antifa, they're a terroristic group, so on and so forth, look at what they did, then your average Joe, who would never in a million years invoke political violence, they wouldn't hurt a fly. They didn't have to. Now they are defending the murder and the celebration of murder. That's how semantic obfuscation works.
That was Lacey Macaulay, an Antifa protester in Washington.
Protester who advocates for looting and supports the use of force. You know, that's the other thing. I remember when the rioting was going on, and I looked at 2 Twitter feeds from local news stations, and they would always call these crazy riots of assault on police officers, assault on property, assaulting people. They'd always call it protesting.
Right.
That was the one. That was the one I was talking about, where somebody got kicked in the face. You could see it right at the end of the last person they showed. That person died weeks after the Lacey interview.
On police officers.
Yeah. God damn it. Come on. Come on, struggle streaming. Struggle streaming. Struggle streaming.
Really? Assault on property, assaulting people.
All right. right here. So this dude is this is his head. Oh, where am I? This is his head right here. This is a foot. This white, that is a foot. He's winding up to soccer kick dude from behind. And let's watch this in slow motion. All right, so watch this.
People that always
boom. One more time. I wasn't even slow enough.
Assault on property.
Ready? All right. Foot right there. Head right there. Oh no, that's the, yeah, that's a, so now it's planted. So now the other foot comes down, winds up, winds up, all the way back. Boom. Boom. That is Antifa. That is Antifa.
They're always called protest.
That's okay, according to Lacey. That's what needs to be done. That's what needs to be done, according to Antifa. Is that the world you want to live in? It's not the world I want to live in.
Right.
It's just so dishonest.
Right.
I mean, just describe the phenomenon for what it is by using the appropriate words.
And who are they fighting? They're fighting working class people. It doesn't get much more working class than law enforcement. Right. They're fighting working class people. And in most of those cities like Chicago and Baltimore and places like that, even here in Portland, probably half.
Those are literally the same three that off the top of my head, talking about how terrible Democratic cities are, just happen to be the same three cities that I named. Coincidence?
The police force, if not more, is black or Hispanic.
The chief of police is black.
Yeah, usually the
former chief of police is black. And
these guys are out there trying to protect the neighborhood and protect people, and they're being assaulted and attacked by terrorists. Like
oh, okay. So we haven't seen the Antifa murder video. So let's get that up. Michael Reinhold. Reinhold.
A newly released affidavit gives us some.
Okay, so just in case you're not sure, I see this. If you're not an Antifa, you're part of the Proud Boys. Pretty much, that's the extent of nuance that exists in politics these days. But so this is caught on video. An Antifa member specifically taking a gun to a person simply because they're a Trump supporter.
More insight into the shooting at a downtown Portland protest last weekend. The suspect, Michael Reinhold, was shot and killed by police last night when they went to arrest him. We want to warn you, some of this video is graphic.
The affidavit includes this surveillance photo, which shows Reinhold inside a parking garage earlier.
I think this might be a different one, but
Saturday night, as the victim, Jay Danielson, walks by. Reinhold can then be seen following them. The affidavit also references this video from a live streamer and witness to the shooting. In it, 2 shots were fired. Police say one.
So this is, I think it's him walking up here, and somebody's like, "Hey, we got one here," meaning a Trump supporter.
One shot hit a can of bear spray that Danielson was carrying. The other hit him in the chest. Reinhold told Vice News the shooting was in self-defense. He says he was defending a friend of his.
I had no choice.
I mean, I had a choice. I could have sat there and watched them kill a friend of mine of color.
Except that we just watched, in this video, we watched you walk up from behind. And notice what's on his neck here. The communist fist. So, misunderstood. Misunderstood. That's what we get from Antifa.
Lazy. And you've got a taxpayer-funded
Exactly.
institution like NPR carrying water for these people, and
Exactly
it's
correct.
absolutely disgraceful.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of All Things Reconsidered.
So what do we fucking do? What do we fucking do? I don't know. All I can do is come here and talk to you guys every other day, pretty much. Every other day, I come here and I try to expose that what I understand to be true is not exactly what's being portrayed out in the world. And it scares me. It is really scary. I am, however, optimistic. I do think we are hitting that point where normal people are no longer able to turn a blind eye to what's actually happening. People are actually waking up. I remember when the phrase about like "stay woke" was not like people used it non-ironically. There is a desire for people to progress. But maybe it's the entitlement and the narcissism to think that, no, we need change now, and I need to do the change, and I need to change it the way that I think it needs to be changed. How's that working out? Where's Lacey now? How is the neighborhood that she was protesting in? How is that doing? I guarantee you the people who own the businesses that she burned down are still struggling to recover. I need your help, guys. I'm just one person. I'm just one person. I'm trying to build something here to fight this kind of stuff. But I need your help. We need to be something. We need to be a force together. So I'm going to be here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. I will be here. But without you guys, it's not going to be anything. So I hope I hope, we talked about trans dinosaurs and a whole bunch of stuff. I hope it was at least entertaining. And as always, we are going right to the panel. The show continues. The party rages on. The link for the Discord is in the description. So hit that as soon as I am done here. I am not moving. I'm going right over there. And that is where you can find me anytime I am not here. Also in the description, we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and I do think we can get there. I think we can get there by the end of the year. I do not want to wake up in 2023 with 3 digits in my subscriber count. And I think you can help me do it. But I'm not there yet. So in the meantime, if you would like to help support the channel, that would be eternally appreciated. I can't tell you how much that would mean to me. But you don't have to do that. The fact that you hanging out here, that's plenty for me. And you know what? It is absolutely free to hit the like button, to subscribe, to hit the bell, to laugh at Jimmy Dean. That's all free. And it's free to share this. It's free to take the URL, put it, you know how YouTube notifications are. So what I need is for you to be the notification. Take this URL, post it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever. There's somebody that you know that wants to see this and they just don't know about it. Be the person that shows them what the fuck is good. Let's get this party started. Thank you so much for hanging out, guys. I really appreciate it. I really hope to see you in the Discord. But if not, until next time, I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, I am out of here. Peace.